Week 7 of the college football season. It is kicking off, let's see, tonight, in fact, on this Tuesday, as we are in the midst of 49 straight days of football. And we've got plenty of great matchups here in this week 7. And we're going to have a couple of best bets along the way. We're going to talk about some of these games in which we think there are edges to be had. We'll do it, of course, with 3 of the best at wagertalk.com when it comes to breaking down these college football games. Adam Trigger in the house, Brian Leonard, R1L, Steve Merrill ready to go here. We're going to kick it off with you, Trig, because let's not waste any time in this week 7. We got games tonight, in fact, and one of the games you're going to talk about here has to do with Coastal Carolina and App State. A little disappointing, I thought, once the quarterback came back for like his 9th year, that Coastal Carolina be a little bit better than what they are, but they haven't been. What do you think they do here tonight against App State?
Well, Joe, I kind of love the Tuesday card, and I have 2 client plays. I have strong opinions in all 3 of these games. This was, of course, this was the one I left off. It didn't make my client card, so of course it'll win. I like Coastal Carolina here. I agree with what you said. They're kind of, somewhat down this year, but I think the same can be said from Appalachian State as well. This doesn't, talked to Brian Power about this game earlier on our show and made the point that in years past, this was like one of the marquee matchups of like Sun Belt conference play, sort of almost deciding like who would eventually win this conference. And it's not really that this year. I feel like both of these teams have kind of taken a step back from where they've been the past couple of years. But for some reason, Coastal Carolina seems like they're getting penalized by the odds makers for that, where Appalachian State is this line tells me they're still viewed as what they've been. And I don't really think that's the case. So I think some of it has to do with the fact that Coastal is 0-2 in Sun Belt play. Of course, back-to-back losses to Sun Belt opponents the last 2 weeks. But Appalachian State's got a couple losses. Granted, they're North Carolina and Wyoming look better. It looked like better losses on paper. But the Wyoming game, the spread was like 3. That wasn't exactly just a great loss for Appalachian State. So I think they might be inflated a little bit because of that. The other thing here with Coastal, that makes this sort of a nice spot to back them, in my opinion, is that 0-2 start in conference play makes this a little bit of a desperation spot for the Chanticleers. If you go 0-3 to start Sun Belt play, I mean, that kind of puts you out of it. If they can somehow get a win here tonight, it feels like they might be able to get back in it from a standpoint of being able to compete in the Sun Belt. Now, I think Coastal could be down this year, Joe. Like, I think that they could be a very average team, maybe even below average in this conference, but they've still done a couple of nice things. They hung around with UCLA. The great Jacksonville State team that everybody loves, that I'll talk about a little bit later in this show. The one team to sort of comfortably beat them this year was Coastal Carolina. And so, on the Appalachian State side, they, defensively, their metrics are down across the board. I think Coastal Carolina can score here. They're going to have to be able to run the ball, in my opinion. Appalachian State does not defend the run well. Coastal hasn't run it well. But if Coastal can find a way to put some points on the board and can generate some yards on offense running the ball, I have a hard time seeing Appalachian State pulling away in this game and winning by margin. So the final thing I'll leave you with here, Appalachian State in the red zone has struggled. Coastal Carolina's red zone defense has been solid, probably one of their better metrics on defense. When I add all of that up, it feels like Coastal Carolina is a little bit undervalued in this spot. So I would take the points with the visitors here. Like I said, didn't make my client card like the other 2 did, but I feel like this is a decent game. It's been a pretty good game in past years, and I don't think Coastal is that far off from Appalachian State this year. So if forced to make a bet in this game, it would be with the Chanticleers taking the points.
Yeah, kind of coaching change there for Grayson McCall, and just not the same quarterback that we have seen in the past, but that could all change with that kind of experience tonight on the road against App State. And Brian Leonard in the house. We're going to head to the Pac-12 with Brian here in just a second. But quick suggestion, as long as you're here, you might as well go ahead and hit the subscribe button because, well, when it comes to college football content, nobody has more than we do here at Wager Talk TV. All the top 25 matchups, top 25 teams, everything you need to know, including best bets, are just a couple of clicks away. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and get ready for a huge Week 7 clash, including out west. But here we go again. The hype has settled down a little bit here, Brian, when it comes to Colorado. Of course, they got a flair for the dramatic. We just saw that again this week with Arizona State. Stanford coming to town, though. Double-digit favorite Colorado. Are you buying them in this spot?
You know, it's interesting. I've made a lot of money going against Colorado. Well, now it's a game where I can actually have some value on them after they lost really big to a couple of good teams. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, the Cardinal here have extra time to prepare after a 42-6 home loss to Oregon 2 weeks ago. After defeating Hawaii on the road in the season opener, Stanford's dropped 4 straight games. They have played the Buffaloes twice in the last 4 years. In those games, they were favored in both those matchups, and they lost outright. So Colorado's played pretty well against Stanford in the short term. Over the last 6 years, Stanford 6+ actually, if you include this year, Stanford has a 5-15 ATS mark as road underdogs. So this is not the preferred place for Stanford to be. They are much better at home over the years. Through 5 games, the Cardinals managed just 3 touchdown passes while allowing 12. So the passing game has not been good for Stanford this year. To play this many games already and only have 3 touchdown passes pretty much tells you that. The golden early days of David Shaw are long in the rearview mirror for Stanford fans as Troy Taylor looks to improve on back-to-back 3-win seasons under the former coach. Colorado gets a much-deserved week off after this contest, and they've had a real exciting season. They've had a full season worth of excitement already. We're only halfway through. The Buffaloes have succeeded against this type of opponent while being overwhelmed when they do step up in class. They have a huge advantage here under center as Shedeur Sanders has a 16-2 touchdown to interception ratio. 16 touchdown passes for Sanders, 3 for the entire Stanford team. Colorado hasn't surpassed 5 wins in the last 6 seasons. A win here would equal that mark with 5 more games to go. Deion Sanders actually lit into his team after that 27-24 Arizona State victory. A lot of it for the way they played, a lot of it for the way his son acted going to the opposition's student section. But we expect Colorado to respond well here against a lesser opponent, especially the latest news that we have gotten that their 2-way star that's been injured for a while is going to be back. He says the coach says it's going to be back, so that's going to be a huge advantage here. The line only moved about a half a point since that news came out. I think he's worth more than half a point to this line. So give us Colorado here. It's 11 and a half now. It wouldn't surprise me if this comes upwards towards the 13 by game time.
All right, looking for Colorado to handle business at home. Steve Merrill looking at a Friday night game here, and this is an interesting one. Tulane heading to Memphis to take them on here on this Friday night. What are you looking at in this matchup?
Yeah, on the surface, it might look strange to have a home dog when both teams are solid, at least record-wise, a solid 4-1 straight up on the season. Yet there is a reason why Tulane's laying a field goal or more in this game. In fact, as we look at the Wager Talk Live odds screen, it opened -3, but now it's as high as 4.5, even some 5 starting to show. So the money and what I would call the sharp money has been on Tulane so far early this week. And I would agree with that move. Totals held pretty solid, around 56.5, now down to 56 in most locations. But Tulane's a little bit of an underrated college football team this year. They've had the quarterback injuries with Michael Pratt, has not played all the games. Of course, they lost that game against Ole Miss when they were top 25 back in week 2. Pratt did not play. Backup Horton did not play well in that one. In more recent games, when he's under center, that he takes care of the ball. 8 touchdowns, only 1. He's really the key to this team, in my opinion. They had last week off, so he should be getting healthier and healthier. And this is a very focused spot for Tulane. And the reason I say that, even though these are 4-1 teams, Tulane deserves to be the road favorite, is you just look at the overall statistics and margins. First of all, Tulane's played a tougher schedule overall and they're still outgaining their opponent 6.3 to 4.9. Memphis is outgaining them 6.2 to 5.7, but they faced a schedule of defenses that allow 6.5 on average. They're only averaging 6.2 yards per play. This is Memphis. Now they're facing a good Tulane defense that gives up just 17 points a game and 4.9 yards per play. Tulane throws for over 9 yards per pass attempt this year. Memphis, yes, they throw for 7.8, but once again, their opponents have allowed 8.5. So they face some really weak defensive teams. That's why they're 4-1 on the season. It's also why they're 4-1 to the over, whereas Tulane has faced a tougher schedule. They're actually 4-1 to the under. We'll take the better defensive team here off the bye week in a focus spot. The better team in general, lay it with Tulane on Friday night. That is your national TV game at 7 Eastern Friday on ESPN.
Yep, love that spot there. So we've got 3 big game breakdowns. We've got 3 best bets coming up, and a quick reminder, hit us up in the comment section. Any questions you guys might have on these games or any of the games on the slate here in this week 7 of the college football season, drop me in those comment sections as Steve, Adam, and Brian will be monitoring it all week long, leading right up until kickoff. So if you got any questions for the guys, drop them below as we come full circle and head right back to tonight in an interesting game here, Trig, which you're going to make your best bet. And Liberty is going to be the focus of this game as a 6.5, maybe even a touchdown favorite over Jacksonville State, which everyone seems to want to jump on this bandwagon. Are you doing that here tonight?
Well, Joe, I can't possibly do that because I've unfortunately been the one fading the Jacksonville State bandwagon. I've bet against this team 3 times this year so far. I've lost all 3. And one of them was last week in a game where Middle Tennessee was up 23-7 at halftime. Had a chance to go up by 23 points. Dropped what should have been a sure touchdown and then got blown out in the second half. So I'm going to go against Jacksonville State for a 4th time this season. But, Joe, I think the 4th time is the charm. And I'm going to try to pick up where I left off on Wager Talk today when I talked about this game yesterday, because I did decide to make it a client play. And I want to just talk about the line here. You mentioned it going back to 7. I thought that was interesting because the line moves tend to they follow teams week to week, I found. And so when I saw Jacksonville State take some money the last couple weeks, I thought they might take some money again here. They, of course, got bet down from 7 to 6. I thought maybe we would see a 5.5 at some point because last 2 weeks they went all the way up to 7 against Sam Houston State. And then last week they got absolutely slammed from +5 down to, I think, 2.5 by game time against Middle Tennessee. So the fact that Liberty not only went from 6 to 6.5 now to 7 tells me that was probably some respected money. And I decided to jump in overnight at 6.5, make it a 4% play. And now I'm starting to see 7s again, which is probably going to attract that Jacksonville State money that's been showing up on Jacksonville State pretty much every week since the beginning of the season. If you go back to week 0, Joe, everyone was on Jacksonville State then, and they got a nice win over UTEP. But in that UTEP game, Jacksonville State was outgained significantly. And now Jacksonville State has now won 3 games this year where they were outgained by over 100 yards. I think in one case last week was close to 200 yards by their opponent. The UTEP game 2 weeks ago against Sam Houston State, they had a 21-7 lead, or they were down 21-7, came back and won in overtime. And then, of course, last week, the big halftime deficit to Middle Tennessee State, and they come back and kind of play a great second half. Now, the difference between those 3 teams and tonight, in my opinion, is Liberty. I really think Liberty is a cut above the teams that we just spoke about, that Jacksonville State was able to overcome an early deficit and come back and win. I can't see Jacksonville State digging themselves a hole against this Liberty team and being able to dig out of it. Liberty, in my opinion, is just too good. They are the best team in this conference, in my opinion, at this point, and they're sort of becoming one of the elite teams at this level. I know that last week they sort of struggled with Sam Houston State, but a lot of teams have struggled with Sam Houston State so far. It's a team that's kind of hung in there and played good defense, and I think this is just a far bigger game for Liberty. I think you're going to see a more focused Liberty side after almost blowing that game last week. Caden Salter, 2 or more touchdowns in each game. I think he's going to be a problem here for the Jacksonville State defense. He's only thrown, so that's 12 touchdowns on the season, only 2 interceptions. I just think the line move is telling here that it's gone back to 7, and now you're starting to see the juiced 7, +7 on Jacksonville State. I think the odds makers are taking a little bit of a position here. They know they're going to get an influx of Jacksonville State money from now until kickoff because the betting public has loved this team the past couple of weeks. They've cashed for them. So, I don't see why they wouldn't be back here. I'm pretty happy with Liberty at -6.5 right now. And I do think Liberty wins this one going away. So Liberty, 4% client play for me tonight at Wager Talk. And I also have a client play in the Middle Tennessee State, Louisiana Tech game. And I've put them together. So I gave you the Liberty play right here. The other one is up on my page, but all the analysis will be packaged together on those.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, Jacksonville State averaging almost +2 in turnovers in every game. That will not last at all. At some point, this facade is going to come crashing down here with Jacksonville State. Probably tonight, taking on Liberty here. Make sure you visit Adam's page, though. He's got plenty of action lined up, ready to go here this week, as does Brian Leonard, who gave us Colorado against Stanford in the big game breakdown. Now, Brian, you are looking at the Big Ten here with Wisconsin taking on Iowa here. Iowa getting double digits on the road. What are you thinking?
Yeah, the last 3 meetings in this series has produced point totals of 34, 34, and 35 points. And the current posted total on this game is 36. So let's just say I will not be watching this game for enjoyment because there's 2 bad offenses here, and especially from the Iowa side. Despite the lack of the offense, the Hawkeyes enter with a 5-1 record. They're allowing over 16 points just once this season. That was when they played Penn State, a big step-up game for them. And anytime you're playing Penn State, the coach knows what the line is, and we already know about that a little bit. So that's always a concern when you're playing Penn State. But while the schedule has been rather weak, it's tough not to take double digits here with a total this low, especially we consider that this will likely be the toughest game for the rest of the season for the Hawkeyes. They finished the regular season against Minnesota, Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois, and Nebraska. It's not out of the look that they could actually win this division and play in the Big Ten championship, and then probably lose by 30 to Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State. But we're looking at right now that I think Iowa's got some advantages. But Wisconsin's 4-1, and their only losses come at Washington State. I talked about that when the Big Ten schools and the schools from the East travel west, they really struggle, and they did that in that Washington State game. But they too have played a weaker schedule. The running game for the Badgers has been pretty good. They average 5.19 yards per carry. The passing game has only produced 3 touchdowns on the season. So Wisconsin wanted to come into this season and do less of a running and more of a passing, but it hasn't really worked out for them. With 2 offenses that you really can't trust here, the current line is just too much to pass up. It's rare that you get 10 points on a game that's scheduled to be a 36-point game. And as we saw the last 3 years, 34, 34, 35, offense will not be in the cards this week. Give us Iowa plus the double digits here against Wisconsin.
Oh, and yeah, just bet the special teams touchdown already. Good God, in these Iowa games, it's going to be pick 6, scoop and score, some sort of blocked punt return. It's never a lot of points, Brian, but man, is it always interesting to see how they show up on the board with Iowa. My goodness. All right, Merrill, one more best bet coming up here. And just a quick reminder, go ahead, hit that subscribe button if it is college football content you crave. It is college football content we have for you, including Steve Merrill's videos each and every week on his top 25 breakdown for you guys. So hit that subscribe button. Never miss any of the content, the previews, and the best bets that we've got to offer here in this week 7 of the college football season. All right, Merrill, wouldn't be college football if we didn't talk Bama. Handled business against A&M last week. They're back at it again this week. LSU, what are you going to do here?
Yeah, be sure to check out my college football top 25 video later this week on Thursday night into Friday. We preview the top 25 head-to-head matchups. And of course, Alabama is a top 25 team, but this game will not be in the discussion because Arkansas is not. They're only 2-4 in the season. After winning back-to-back games as a 38-point favorite to start the year, they've lost 4 straight now. Lost as a home favorite to BYU. They've lost 3 straight in conference play. LSU, Texas A&M, Ole Miss. Yes, tough opponents, but it does not get any easier this Saturday at noon Eastern on ESPN when they go to Tuscaloosa, and they will face an Alabama team, which I think will be extremely focused despite the big road wins against Mississippi State and then that big one last week at Texas A&M. They're not going to take their foot off the gas. They cannot afford to take their foot off the gas because they lost that game in week 2 against Texas. So the question becomes, is this a team they can beat by 3 touchdowns or more? And I think it is. Alabama would be the only way I would play this one on Saturday for several reasons. First of all, yes, Bama's offense has struggled at times this year, and everyone's talking about they don't throw the ball well. But if you look at it statistically, they're averaging 9.2 yards per pass attempt. That's almost a first down every time they throw. So I think the passing attack's a little bit better than people realize. It's getting better as the season progresses. And they're facing an Arkansas defense that gives up almost 8 yards per pass. Also, Alabama's very good defensively, as they are every season. They're allowing just 15 points a game, just 4.5 yards per play. And Arkansas below average, both running and throwing the ball when you factor in opponents played this year. The 31 points per game is very misleading because they put up 84 points in their first 2 games as 38-point favorites. And the 31 against BYU and LSU's defense has looked awful, as we know. So I think Arkansas is a little overrated. Even with 4 straight losses, they're not as good as their numbers say. Alabama's a little underrated, and they're more than focused to win this one by margin. Take a look early Saturday afternoon on ESPN at Alabama minus the 19.5. And don't forget, get my official best bets right now on my page on a daily basis, baseball and college and pro football. Steve Merrill, wagertalk.com.
Yep, best bets available right now. You heard Trig tell you he's got play locked and loaded here for tonight. Don't forget, Brian Leonard ready to go. The NHL season starts here tonight. And Merrill ready to rock here, guys. It is only Tuesday in this week 7 of the college football season, but we've got much more still to come. In fact, if you guys want to see some of the other week 7 matchups that we've got for you, go ahead. Click on that video on your screen right now, and you'll get to see all of those top 25 matchups here, key matchups coming up in this week 7 of the college football season. And come back and join us again tomorrow. We'll do it again with the college football kickoff show on Wednesday. Until then, best of luck with your plays tonight.